developing countries. That being said, I'm very happy to be here. I'd like to listen to some of your concerns. If you don't mind, I'll write my email address. I brought some cards that I'll leave too, but it's real simple. It's jking and then at provo.org. And if you ever want me or some of my staff to come talk to you and the people in your community, whether in your neighborhood, whether it be 100 or 3, that's okay. So we'll come on out there and we'll get somebody to talk about some safety and some concerns that may come up. The one thing that I like about Provo that immediately attracted me to the job was the interaction and the relationship between the citizens and the government. That's what I really enjoy doing. I like a demanding public. I've been in some agencies where there's been a high demand, and I think the government and the police department in particular responds to that. And then I've been in places, say, like Baltimore, where people don't have any expectations, and that's what they get. Okay, so with high expectations, we're going to deliver a high product. And so I appreciate the input from people have. Don't be afraid to call me up and what may be complaining. Okay, you're just voicing your concerns, not complaining. Okay, that's sort of our job as a government to be responsive. Sort of a quick snapshot of the city. This, as you know, is an incredibly safe city. Joked around with the council members during my confirmation and the mayor that when I initially saw the statistics, I thought they had misplaced a decimal point in the crime rate. There's a mathematical error there, so I'm going to get it done. That being said, that happens not because of only good government service, but by good people who live in the community and who act as the eyes and ears. So we're not nosy neighbors, we're concerned neighbors. And I think that that's a benefit. When we have issues that happen in the city and arrests that are made, almost all of them are a result of a good call to the police that said, hey, there's someone in my community that I think they're a little odd. Their behavior is odd. That's what we're talking about, behavior. They're looking into cars and trying car doors. That's a big clue, okay? They're not shopping for a car, they're shopping for what's in the car. So give us a call there. I'm very proud of the agency that I have, that I got good people, and the improvements that we're going to make together are sort of process improvements. And one of the things I'd like to share with you, as you go through community policing, and Provo Police Department's been practicing it for a while, is there's a couple of different elements that are important. You have to have a problem-solving mentality. So it's not just about crime and locking people up, although we do that, and I'm really proud of the investigative skills that our guys have, and their ethical compass on making an arrest and not making an arrest. We have other stuff that, we have a homeless population, some people with some mental illness here, and I've been really impressed of when I've shown up on the scene unannounced and watched my officers interact with people who are not real high on the socioeconomic status, that they do it safely for the citizens and for themselves, and yet they do it very compassionately. I've just been so impressed with that. And so my mission is to continue to do that good behavior. Some structural things that we're missing in community policing: we have to have problem solving, we have to have community involvement, we have to have partnerships, which we're doing really well. One thing we're a little lax on that we're improving on is geographical responsibility, and that's where the neighborhoods come in. And so we're about to move toward a new beat plan, and a beat would be a geographical area of employment. If you can think, I'll have my New York flashback. You got the beat cop walking his beat. Okay, when I was in Baltimore and I saw Balmer, if you live there, Balmer, they leave off a couple of letters from the accent. But I had a foot beat that was Greenmount Avenue. Okay, and if you looked at it, you got one cop for one street. What are you going to be doing? Well, in a year and a half there, I locked up 2 guys for murder. Okay, so it's a different environment, but you have a geographical responsibility. You go, this is my slice of the pie that I'm responsible for. And the way we have the neighborhood set up here in the city is a perfect way to mirror that and to get the input from you guys about what's going on in the community. Both, we have the factual data and we got all the statistics, and that tells an important piece of the puzzle, but only one piece. What I need to hear from you and from your neighbors is, what are the concerns? Okay, and so we have to address the perception of safety and unsafety and traffic safety too. So we are going to redo it, and we're going to have an officer on every shift that's available in these beats. And right now we know we have 34 neighborhoods in the city, and those 34 neighborhoods will probably be evolved into 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 police beats. And every shift, there will be an officer assigned to that beat. Because what's happening now, even though we have officers assigned to neighborhoods, and hopefully that's been working well, when we do dispatch, it's a little bit too much inside the organization, but when we do dispatch priority, we didn't have any dispatch priority. So if there was a theft, minor theft that occurred earlier at the mouth of the canyon, and we had an officer who was available on the south side of the city who was sitting in front of a school trying to prevent some crime by their presence, that officer was just dispatched to the top of the city to handle that call. So the sort of education part we're going to have, we may have some slower response times, but it's going to be smart response time. And from the customer service standpoint, what we need to know and what we're going to try to deliver is almost like when I call up to get Sears delivering furniture to my townhouse, that they say we're going to be here for 2 hours. And then if need be, you can give us a number and we'll call you when we're 10 minutes away. So you can go, people can go about their business and know who the police officers are. So we're going to try and use technology to help us that way. But we're trying to be smarter in our deployment. One thing is and the council members here, I'm not going to ask for staffing right away, but if you look at the national model, we are way below what the staffing should be. Now, part of that is an appropriate use of it based on the crime statistics, not just the population and the size of the city. But what I want to do is to make sure we're right size and give a good tax value to the citizens of the city. And so we're excited because we're going to build this initially from this beat deployment plan from inside the police department. And then before we roll it out, we're going to run it by you guys in neighborhood chairs. And I'm pretty confident that we have defined neighborhoods, and we include like neighborhoods in a patrol beat. So you'll know on every shift sort of who your patrol officer is. You'll see a familiar face. And Hal and I were at a downtown alliance meeting, and I brought up the example, like, I grew up in Long Island in New York, and I didn't know the cop's name, but I knew car 306 was my cop. Okay, I won't tell you why I knew it, but I knew car 306 was. Okay, I knew what he looked like. Didn't want to get close enough to see his like that, but I knew who he looked like. I want you guys to know who your beat officer is, and so I'm going to sell that internally. That's not sort of the overview. I want to take up a lot of your time, except to learn from you and answer questions. So please ask me some questions, ma'am.
My neighbor and I were kind of on the border of 2 neighborhoods. We went through the neighborhood watch training, mobile watch, and then we didn't hear any more from the police department.
Okay.
But I got an email the other day from somebody else who's apparently running it now. Is it going to start up again?
Well, hopefully it never went away, so I'll have to find out about how the neighborhood watch is being involved in the city. And I don't think every neighborhood in the city has a neighborhood watch.
Yeah, I know it's very active in some neighborhoods. But our neighborhoods have had some really bad burglaries lately. And so we feel like we need to get it going again.
Yeah, and there's some things, if there is an active neighborhood watch in your community, and just neighborhood watch is actually like an official copyrighted term, and they have to be a designated neighborhood watch community, you have to have X amount of the community to sign up and to say that. So we can have formal neighborhood watches, and then we can just have the general crime prevention that we do in a community. So that we may not meet the standard of the National Crime Watch process, but we want all our communities to be crime watchers.
Just a kind of a kudos.
Kudos are good. Everybody listen up.
We had a notice problem in the neighborhood 2 weeks ago. Called in, an officer called me back. That was key, because times in the past that doesn't happen. Said, this is my name, this is my telephone. This is what you can do to help us. We will take care of this. He called me back a couple times, but again, last night he called me and said, 3 arrests. You're clean, keep your watch on it, make sure it doesn't come back. I thought that was really good.
That is good, and thank you for pointing it out, because one of the things, we're into the customer service business. And it's a little bit different. We don't ask people when we lock them up, you want paper or plastic handcuffs. And I find that a little bit, But one of the things I've instilled, they've had it already, we just re-emphasize it, is the importance of communication. And that's why with this beat deployment, if we're going to have a delayed response, we just tell you we're going to be late. It's like anything else. If we're an informed consumer, we're okay with it. And so I'm glad that they did the follow-up to you, because I had some concerns. There was one group where they weren't getting phone calls back, and what happened is that I found out after mining down into it, it wasn't a lack of desire. They were just way understaffed. And so we have to share the load down. That's where the beat will help out too. You have a geographic responsibility, so instead of just being the community policing unit, you'll also have a uniform officer who's going to be working within your area with actually physical. But thank you so much for saying that.
Thank you.
So,
do you have, I know you have a good police presence in a lot of areas, do you have an active undercover operation, or can we ask for that in some areas?
Michael, 3 of them in the room now, just to let you know.
Let me tell you.
Okay, he's one of them.
We had this guy show up in my neighborhood. It didn't look right, so I went and confronted him. I said, "What are you doing here?" And he just kept being evasive. I said, "We need to call a policeman." He says, "Sir, I'm undercover. Could you get away?"
Yeah, we do that. We have what's called, and actually it was the funnest job I ever had in policing. We had a SAT team. They call it a SET team here. We spell it different on the East Coast, I guess. It was a street enforcement team. And they're plainclothes officers who go out and do surveillances to help understand some of the problems and stuff. And so we have a mixture of that. So we have a uniform presence for deterrence, and then we have some plainclothes guys that, go out and are a little bit more of the hammer than.
Is that something we could ask for, or do you do it based upon?
No, it's based on what the needs
crime
are.
and the
Yeah, it's
needs
based
of
on the
the-
needs and stuff. And so, and it's funny, I had that happen to me too. When you're looking at a specific target, you can look suspicious. And so it's a geez, and you go and you try not to say, "I'm the popo," and you try not to say, "Please, I am really here to help." And then usually what happens is people can, and you can actually, if you don't think so, you can go back and call 911 and just say, "Hey, this officer just told me they're police. Are they really?" And they'll check with that officer and then call you back and say, we may say something like very cryptic, like, "Well, you don't have anything to worry about." Most of us can figure out that. Sir.
You said you have the stats, we have the eyes and ears. Is there a way that we can learn some of the stats about what's happening in our neighborhood? Like, is our neighborhood more white collar or more drugs? Or I'd like to know. I think our neighborhood would like to know.
Yeah, and I just worked with my crime analyst to work on some of those, and we've got to do a better job of posting and making that available. And then what I just learned, because I needed data by the neighborhoods that you guys have to help me with this beat plan, is that currently we can't do that, or we haven't been doing it. So I just got to meet with our technology guys and have them figure out a way to grid the community. So by community, we'll be able to provide it. So that's a work in progress. We can give you like general numbers. And if you call up, if you think that there's an issue in your community, we do a lot of analysis, and so we should be able to give you a general snapshot of the community without the exact numbers, but a general snapshot of it. Okay, and just to let you know how we use crime analysis, it's a real high-tech term. We call put cops on dots. So if a dot shows up, we respond to it. It's not rocket science. So we just, we keep it simple because some of these guys use to say truth.
So addressing Jenna Lee used to give us these reports.
Yes, and I just got one yesterday because we haven't seen it for a while, so I asked her to send me one a couple days ago.
And
she sent it to me.
Was it broken down by neighborhoods?
Yes,
Okay, I gotta find out how she did that.
And it was color-coded by crime and where it was located.
Really pictures?
Yeah, it
They
was
actually are
pretty.
making the reports up, so, and it's not general.
Sounds like
it's-
neither the chief nor we are seeing
I
those.
thought it was.
It doesn't
No,
have
I'm not seeing it by
everything.
neighborhoods. I see, the global thing that has the thing. So I do need to
It
figure
comes
it out.
from, I think her name is spelled L-E-I-G-H.
Yeah, it's Lee.
Yeah.
Lee,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
That's from her.
what she probably has to do that for you because we don't have it programmed in. She has to do a lot of unnecessary legwork. So I got to change some of the software.
We used to get them every month,
Yeah,
a year or
so
so ago.
we
They-
haven't for quite some time, so then I thought, oh, we better start checking on those again, so.
That was
I'll
really
send you out the
helpful.
one I
Well, if
got.
it's helpful, then we'll continue to do that. We'll figure out a way to get that done because that's what I want you to do is share information.
Weren't we told that we could do it through crime reports.
Yes,
think
you were
that's-
told that too.
When they stopped, they said, okay, we're gonna stop doing these, but you can get all of this information on
crimereports.com, yes. And
So
you
just
can do that,
the-
if you haven't signed into that, I still use that back in my neighborhood back in Maryland.
It's just so much easier when it comes out once a
Yeah,
month,
yeah.
rather than have to go
And
look
how
it
to
up.
do it right when it's delivered to you.
So, but kind of different train kudos though, where I called, it's probably been a month or so, my kids needed something for traffic safety merit badge, and they had to interview an officer about this. And I bring it up because in the past, I've had kids and different people say, well, should I call? Should I call? I'm like, well, the more we get the officers out, I'm sorry, it was a big deal in that instance. The more you get them out, the more comfortable I think people are. We'll just call, and they'll let you know whether it's we got to rush over or not, and so having that officer come and meet the kids, and he did a great job talking to the kids about things they could do to prevent crime and things. But I just felt like it really kind of gets the
Yeah, you
kids.
can call for that, because we want to do that, and here's how we want to do it, and as I develop my staff, I have people that are really good at that, and I have people who are afraid to do it. And what I may send is that officer who's afraid to do it to your community, because how do we learn how to do this? We just do it. And then it's like Mikey eating something. Give it to Mikey, he'll like it, right?
Thank you.
If they try it a little bit, they're going to get confident. They're going to realize that the fourth graders didn't beat them up. And ask them to, whatever, ask them to do something crazy. And they get their confidence. So please bear with us if you get one of our stars, like Sergeant Crosby.
Well, and there's
And
along
then you
with
get
that.
someone else who's new. Matter of fact, I was going to bring one of my new officers over here, and she just looked at me like, I joke around with her like, Chief, are you kidding? And I go, no, I'm going to maybe have you come over if it's appropriate. And I said, stand by, I'll text you if you need it. So she won't be here, but that was really to get them to come out and get a little bit of the comfort level of meeting community leaders.
But so along with that, so we called because we needed this for.
Yes.
So we had to go to some effort. We called dispatch. Dispatch was clueless.
Uh-huh.
So because I knew Jana, I called Jana. I had her card. I called her. But my son actually approached the officer at the school,
Yeah.
and that was the more successful route because he said, "Call this fella."
Yeah.
And so we might
Okay.
do some training with dispatch.
Well, dispatch, and what
Might do
happens is it opens, actually, I was just down with the Midnight Dispatchers, really a good news story, if I could give my guys a good news here. They delivered a baby the night before, so I went down to congratulate them, and the dispatcher's been a dispatcher for 7 years, had never done it. And, so I sat down the whole process, and the good news is, she actually was able to, you don't just make up how to deliver a baby, right? And we actually have these cards, like, if someone calls and there's a baby, and she said, actually, Chief, it's kind of easy. I went through these, cards, and it was perfect. So I went down and gave them the dues. And I've mentioned to the mayor about this. I've been in a lot of police departments. We have happy midnight dispatchers, which to be anybody to be awake on a midnight shift and be happy is odd anyway. But the dispatchers, because they're sort of hidden and they're in the basement of the center, they sort of feel ignored. They could feel ignored a bit. But we did have some turnover. I have a core group that are very good, and then in any dispatch center, you have 10 to 20% who try the job and can't do it. Try the job and can't do it. And you may have gotten that call, but I will put it down here to talk to them about referrals, because the referral should have been to the community policing group first to get that done. Sir?
When you talked earlier about taking the 34 neighborhoods and maybe breaking 2 or 3 of them up and put in one group, is that part of the COP program that you currently have?
Well, it's not currently one we currently have, it's the one that we're going to be moving towards.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it'd be, and it's a little bit of a change growth among my guys who are very, I tell you, a lot more acceptable to change than I would thought an organization would be. But there's still, anytime you make a sort of a major change like this, like how's it going to affect me and how does it really make us better? And what I have to convince them, this is not the House organization, this is not the John King plan. I'm doing this because this works. I mean, this is data from across the country that will better service. There'll be a platform for better
One of the
service.
reasons I brought that up is because under the COP program, when a new officer would come on board over that particular area, they actually stopped by my house and said, I'm so-and-so, you're the neighborhood chair, I just want you to know I'm available. give me a call, do for that number. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's what we want them to do. So when you do, like, the officers, the beat officers may have, and I'm trying to figure out, I'm too quick, but they may have like 5 neighborhoods in their beat. And then some may actually have more, depending on the calls for service volume. And that's where I got to put cops on the dots where they're needed type things, who may overload some other parts of the city. But you should know that, and that's why I was really glad I got invited to be with you guys, because this is such a great.
Keep up the citizens' police academy.
It's very good. Just met with them on Tuesday night, and they had their first class, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very successful. Thank you.
They don't issue depends, so when they do the page part on it.
Don't tell anybody about that. There's one part that's shocking. Well, I tell you a funny story that my wife in my other department, I let her, she told me she was coming to my Citizen Academy, so I said, of course. So my wife came to the Citizen Academy, and now I'm a victim because now she wants, can I have a taser? Can I have a taser? Can I have a taser? Can I have a taser?
Is there a graduation gift? I'll go back again.
I'll go back. We give you a little pin, you know, no tasers. No. Yes, sir.
So we're about done.
Yep.
Okay, quick question. You know where Great Neck, Long Island is?
Long Island, you're supposed to say Long Island.
Yes.
Yes, I do. I was a little bit further east of there, but nonetheless, beautiful, beautiful water.
That's where I'm going.
If you have any other questions, thank you for your time. Please email me at Provo address. Look forward to a long partnership with you guys. You guys are really key.
I just want Chief King to have a little input back. The neighborhood chairs love their officers and love to get to know them, and we have area council meetings every other month, and that's where they get to interact with their officers one-on-one. So we just want you to know that they have great relationships.
Well, good, and that's so critical. You know, when you have face-to-face communication, and that's why when you've seen you have a lot of times in your communities, you're going to be bringing the beat officers that are available to come, because it's one thing for them to hear a complaint on the phone. It's another thing. It's just human dynamics. If they sit down with you and you tell them a concern, you get that personal touch and the empathy that just comes from hearing people out.
Right. And will they be able to continue to come to their neighborhood meetings?
They will.
Great. Okay. We're good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.